Continue the chapter 17, that was breathing and exchange of gases, and I'll recall your previous lecture topics. I had given you the organs of the breathing mechanism, or you can say the respiratory organs in humans, as well as the functions of the various organs and the mechanism process. I'll recall the mechanism process for you. Before that, I would like to tell you something about the conducting part and the exchange part. Now, I had already told you that the outer pleural membranes of the lungs, they are in close contact with the inner lining of the thoracic cavity. Thoracic cavity means chest cavity, while the inner pleural membranes is in contact with the surface of the lungs. Now, based on the various functions, the respiratory system, it is divided into two parts. First is the conducting part and second is the exchange part. The conducting part is the part starting with the external nostrils up to the terminal bronchioles. I repeat, the part starting with the external nostrils up to the terminal bronchioles is known as conducting part, and this conducting part performs the various functions. I repeat, the external nostrils up to the terminal bronchioles is known as the conducting part. It performs the following functions. First, help in transportation of the atmospheric air to the alveoli. I repeat, the conducting part help in transportation of the atmospheric air to the alveoli. Second, it clears the air from foreign particles. Third, it humidifies the air. And fourth, also brings the air to the body temperature. Therefore, the conducting part that begins from external nostrils to the terminal bronchioles help in cleaning the air, humidifying the air and bringing the air to body temperature, and helps in the transportation of air to the alveoli. The exchange part, that is the alveoli and their ducts. I repeat, the second part is the exchange part, which consists of the alveoli and the ducts. All these two help in the exchange part. Therefore, the exchange part is the site of actual diffusion of O2 and CO2 between the blood and the atmospheric air. I repeat, the exchange part consists of alveoli and their ducts, which is the site of actual diffusion of O2 and CO2 between the blood and the atmospheric air. Therefore, alveoli is the place or the site where the exchange of gases takes place. Now, about the thoracic chamber. This thoracic chamber, it is an airtight chamber. So, you can receive the questions also. Why is thoracic chamber as an airtight chamber? The lungs, I told you, situated in the thoracic chamber. The thoracic chamber is formed dorsally by the vertebral column, ventrally by sternum, laterally by ribs, and on lower side by the dome-shaped diaphragm. I repeat, the lungs are situated in the thoracic chamber, and the thoracic chamber is formed dorsally by the vertebral column, means the backside, and the ventrally by sternum, the chest cavity, laterally by the ribs, and on the lower side by the dome-shaped diaphragm. Thus, it forms an airtight chamber, which you can see on the screen also. of your NCERT page, and the setup of lungs in the thorax is in such a way that any change in the volume of the thoracic cavity will be reflected in the lungs or pulmonary cavity. I repeat, the setup of lungs in the thorax is in such a way that any change in the volume of thoracic cavity will be reflected in the lungs or pulmonary cavity. Such type of arrangement, it is very important for the process of breathing. Now, what are the steps in the breathing, or you can say the respiration? All essential steps for the process of respiration are: first, breathing or pulmonary ventilation, by which atmospheric air is drawn in and CO2 rich alveolar air is released out. I repeat, the breathing or pulmonary ventilation, by which atmospheric air is drawn in, means taken in, and CO2 rich alveolar air is released out or given out. Second is the exchange of gases by the process of diffusion, that means diffusion of gases O2 and CO2 across the alveolar membrane. Third is the transport of gases by the blood. Third is the transport of gases by the blood. Fourth is the diffusion of O2 and CO2 between blood and the tissues. I repeat, diffusion of O2 and CO2 between blood and the tissue. Utilization of O2 by the cells for the catabolic reactions or oxidation and resultant, that is the release of CO2. Then we come to the mechanism of the breathing. The inspiration process I had already discussed along with you in my previous lecture. I'll recall your memory for the inspiration, because if you understand about the inspiration, then you to understand the expiration quickly. And again, during the inspiration, muscles they contract. Ribs and the stirred outward and forward. Volume of the radial and thereby diaphragm becomes flat and straight. This descent of the diaphragm increases the size of the thoracic cavity, and the abdominal muscles relax, which cause the compression of the abdominal organs. As a result of these muscular movements, the ribs are drawn out forward and forward. The sternum is carried forward. Dome-shaped diaphragm becomes flat. The volume of the thoracic cavity increases in all the directions, and the pulmonary pressure falls down considerably than the atmospheric pressure. In order to equalize the pressure, the air rushes into the lungs through the trachea and gets filled up with the alveolar spaces. So here you can see on the screen, it's explaining you the mechanism of the breathing, comprising inspiration as well as the expiration. Inspiration steps I can repeat. It occurs when the intrapulmonary pressure is less than atmospheric pressure. That means the intrapulmonary pressure is negative. Means inside the lungs the pressure is low, and it is due to the contraction of the diaphragm, because of which the volume of the thoracic cavity or the chest cavity in the anterior posterior X, it increases, means from anterior till the posterior axis. There is increase in the volume of the chest cavity due to contraction of diaphragm muscles. The contraction of external intercostal muscles thereby lifts or it pulls up the ribs and the sternum and increases the volume of the thoracic cavity in the dorsoventral axis, means dorsally as well as the ventrally the volume of the thoracic cavity or the chamber is increased. Thus, there is overall increase in the thoracic volume or the volume of the thoracic cavity is raised due to increase in the pulmonary volume. This causes a decrease in the intrapulmonary pressure and forces atmospheric air to move into the lungs. Now, roundabout twice I have explained you the process of inspiration. Now we begin with the expiration. During the expiration, actually it is the expelling out of the foul air from the lungs. It is a passive process where volume of the thoracic cavity decreases due to the relaxation of inspiratory muscles. I repeat, the volume of the thoracic cavity decreases due to the relaxation of inspiratory muscles. It occurs due to the following steps. First is the external intercostal muscles relaxes or contraction of internal intercostal muscles occur. The ribs, the sternum are returned back to their normal position. This decreases the volume of the chest cavity. I repeat, the relaxation of external intercostal muscles occur and the ribs, sternum are returned back to their normal position. This decreases the chest volume. Second, the radial and the circular muscles of the diaphragm relax and the diaphragm return back to its original dome shape appearance. I repeat, the diaphragm returns to its original dome shaped appearance due to the relaxation of radial and circular muscles of the diaphragm. What about now the abdominal muscles? The abdominal muscles contract and the diaphragm pushes upward due to the raising pressure in the abdominal cavity. I repeat, the abdominal muscles contract and the diaphragm pushes upward due to the raising pressure in the abdominal cavity. The internal intercostal muscles contract because of the relaxation of external intercostal muscles, which pulls down the upper ribs towards the lower ribs. I repeat, the internal intercostal muscles contract, which pulls down the upper ribs towards the lower ribs. This decreases the volume of the thoracic cavity. As a result of these muscular movements and factors, the volume of the thoracic cavity reduces and its intrapulmonary pressure increases. I repeat, as a result of these muscular movements and the factors, the volume of the thoracic cavity reduces and its intrapulmonary pressure increases. To equalize this pressure, the distended elastic lungs contract and expel out air through the trachea. The abdominal and internal intercostal muscles are called expiratory muscles because they help in the expiration of the foul air or CO2. This way, the process of expiration also complete. It's just opposite to the inspiration. Here, what happens? I am just recalling the intrapulmonary pressure is higher, or you can say the pressure is higher in the lungs that than that of the atmosphere. That means the intrapulmonary pressure is positive. During the inspiration it was negative. Now during the expiration the intrapulmonary pressure is positive, and the intercostal muscles of the diaphragm they relax, and the diaphragm and the sternum comes back to normal positions. This decreases the thoracic volume and as well as the pulmonary volume. This leads to an increase in intrapulmonary pressure slightly above the atmospheric pressure, and thereby help in expelling of the foul air from the lungs. This way I end with the expiration as well as the inspiration. Now the breathing rate, on an average the healthy human breathes 12 to 16 times per minute, and the respiratory volume and the capacities you can see on the screen. These two diagrams given in the figure 17.2, they are explaining you the mechanism of the breathing, showing inspiration as well as expiration. So you can very well see that when the diaphragm contracted it becomes flat, and you can see there is increase in the volume of the chest cavity or the thoracic cavity, and therefore the air rushes in, and the ribs and the sternum they are uplifted or they are raised. You can see the yellow color they are showing the ribs and the sternum, and here you can see the vertebral column, the legs opposite to it, which are here on the labeling of the volume of the thoracic cavity is increased. And during the expiration you can very well see that the ribs and the sternum they come back to their original position due to relaxation of the diaphragm muscles, and the volume of the thoracic cavity is decreased. So both I have explained you many times. I hope you are going to understand the inspiration as well as expiration. Now here I recall you with the respiratory volumes and the capacities. The respiratory volume, the involved in the breathing movements can be measured by using a respirometer. So see various respiratory volumes and the capacities. I repeat, the volume of the air included in breathing movements can be measured by using a respirometer in clinical assessment of the lung functions. So all these, if we are aware about these volume and the capacities of our respiration, they are helping us in assessing the clinical activities of the lung functions. Now the first is the tidal volume, which is represented by TV. It is the volume of the air inspired or expired during normal respiration. I repeat, tidal volume is the volume of air inspired or expired during normal respiration. It is approximately 500 ml for a healthy person, or you can say healthy man can inspire or expire approximately 6,000 to 8,000 ml of air per minute. Next is inspiratory reserve volume, represented by IRV. It is an additional volume of air a person can inspire or by a forcible inspiration. Means a person how much can inspire forcefully. It is about 2,500 ml to 3,000 ml. I repeat, It is about 2500 ml to 3000 ml. Now the next is expiratory reserve volume. It is an additional volume of air a person can expire by a forcible expiration. I repeat, it is an additional volume of air by which a person can expire forcibly. It is about 1000 ml to 1100 ml. Next is residual volume. The residual volume is represented by RV abbreviation. It is the volume of air remaining in the lungs even after a forcible expiration. That means if you forcibly expire, some amount of the volume of the air is left in the lungs. It is about 1100 ml to 1200 ml. Another you see is the respiratory capacities, or you can say the pulmonary capacities. Two or more respiratory volumes are considered together to measure pulmonary capacities, means the lungs capacity. Such capacities can be used in clinical diagnosis. I repeat, these respiratory capacities can be used in clinical diagnosis. First is IC, means inspiratory capacity. It is the total volume of air a person can inspire even after normal expiration. Means even you have expelled the air, how much volume of air a person can take in. It includes tidal volume and inspiratory reserve volume. That means plus TV plus IRV. That means TV plus IRV. TV is tidal volume and IRV, I explained you just previously, that is the inspiratory reserve volume. Next we come to the expiratory capacity, means EC. Expiratory capacity means EC. It is the total volume of air a person can expire after normal inspiration. Means after normal inspiration, how much amount of air a person can expire. It includes tidal volume and expiratory reserve volume, means TV plus ERV. TV stands for tidal volume and expiratory reserve volume is ERV. Therefore, tidal volume plus expiratory reserve volume gives the expiratory capacity. Another is the functional residual capacity. Another is the functional residual capacity. It is the volume of the air that will remain in the lungs after normal expiration. Normally, whatever amount of air you are expiring, even after that, some volume of the air is left in the lungs. It includes ERV plus RV. ERV is expiratory reserve volume. ERV is expiratory reserve volume and RV is residual volume. All the values I have already given you above. Next is the vital capacity. Vital capacity is the maximum volume of air a person can breathe in even after forced expiration. I repeat, it is the maximum volume of air a person can breathe in even after forced expiration, or you can say it is the maximum volume of air a person can breathe out after a forced inspiration. Therefore, it includes ERV plus TV plus IRV. ERV is repeating expiratory reserve volume, TV is tidal volume and IRV is inspiratory reserve volume. Next is total lung capacity. It is the total volume of air accommodated in the lungs at the end of the forced expiration. Means even you have forcefully expired, the total volume of air which the lungs can accommodate, that is the total lung capacity. It is mentioned as TLC. So it includes RV, ERV, TV and IRV, or we can say vital capacity plus residual volume. That means, again repeating, RV is residual volume, ERV is expiratory reserve volume, TV is tidal volume and IRV is inspiratory reserve volume, or we can say the vital capacity plus residual volume. Vital capacity I have already explained to you when I started with these capacities. Now what happens during the exchange of gases? Now we come to the next topic, that is exchange of gases. I discussed with you that it is the alveoli, or you can say alveoli is the site of this respiratory system where exchange of gases takes place. So it takes place by the process of diffusion, that is the movement of molecules from high level of concentration towards the lower level of concentration without any membrane. So the diffusion of gases takes place from the region of higher partial pressure of a gas to a lower partial pressure. Exchange of gases, that is O2 and CO2, occurs at the two sides of the body, that is at the alveoli and at the tissues. Now what is a partial pressure? Here you can table in the table, partial pressure is the pressure of the individual gas. Here you can see the partial pressure in mm of Hg of oxygen and carbon dioxide at different parts involved in the diffusion in comparison to those in atmosphere. Here you can see on the screen the table of your NCERT, that is 17.1. It is telling you the respiratory gases O2 and CO2. Atmospheric air of O2 is there, it is having 159, and at alveoli it is 104, and in deoxygenated blood it is 40, and in oxygenated blood it is 95, and in tissues it is 40. As well as of the CO2, the volumeters, partial pressure here of CO2 in atmospheric air it is 0.3, at alveolar level it is 40, and in deoxygenated blood it is 45, and in oxygenated blood it is 40, and in tissues it is 45. So I would like to explain you at alveolar level. In the alveoli, I told you the primary sites, these are the primary sites of exchange of respiratory gases. I repeat, alveoli are the primary sites of exchange of respiratory gases. Oxygen and CO2 are exchanged at alveoli by the process of simple diffusion. It depends upon the gradient of their partial pressure, as well as and the solubility depends upon solubility of gases and the thickness of the membrane involved in the process of diffusion. So these factors are very important which can affect the rate of diffusion. I repeat, the solubility of the gases as well as the thickness of the membrane which is involved in the process of diffusion. These affect the rate of diffusion. Thus, as I already discussed with the partial pressure, every gas has its own pressure termed as partial pressure, the partial pressure in mm of Hg of O2 and CO2 at different parts involved in the diffusion are listed already. I explained you from the table, your 17.1. Here we can further come to the process of the diffusion or the exchange of the gases. So here you can see in the diagram, I am going to show you the diagram here on the page number 273 of your NCERT. Here you can see the diagrammatic representation of the exchange of the gases at the alveolus and the body tissues with blood and the transport of oxygen and CO2. Now here you see the diagram of the section of an alveolus with the pulmonary capillaries. Now there is a concentration gradient for O2 from alveoli to blood and from blood to the tissues. Once again, you hear me properly, that is, there is a concentration gradient of for O2 from alveoli to blood. That means O2 is going to go from alveoli to blood and from blood to the tissues, and the gradient of CO2 in opposite direction. That means tissue be from tissue to the blood and blood to the alveoli. And repeating, for O2 it will be from alveoli to blood and from blood to the tissues, whereas for CO2 it will be from tissues to the blood and blood to the alveoli, because O2 has to go in and CO2 has to come out. Secondly, it also depends upon the solubility of CO2. The solubility of CO2 is 20 to 20 times higher than that of O2. I repeat, solubility of CO2 is 20 to 25 times higher than that of O2. As a result, the amount of the CO2 that can diffuse through the diffusion membrane per unit difference in partial pressure is much higher as compared to O2. And the diffusion membrane is made up of three major layers. So all these are the factors on which the exchange of the gases depends. So the next is the diffusion membrane. This diffusing membrane, it is made up of three major layers. That is, the first is a squamous epithelium layer of alveoli, another is endothelium layer of alveolar capillaries, and the basement membrane between them. I repeat, the first is the squamous epithelial layer of alveoli and endothelial layer of alveolar capillaries and the basement membrane between them. The total thickness of the membrane is about 0.2 mm. So all these factors are favorable for the process of diffusion of O2 into the venous blood from the alveoli and diffusion of CO2 from the venous blood to the alveoli. Venous blood means deoxygenated blood. So I repeat, all these factors, that is the squamous epithelial layer of the alveoli, endothelial layer of the alveolar capillaries and the basement membrane between the two, these are favorable for the process of diffusion because it is 0.2 mm, and for the diffusion of O2 into the venous blood and from the alveoli, and diffusion of CO2 from the venous blood or the deoxygenated blood into the alveoli. Now what happens in the tissues? In the tissues, actually the tissues are metabolically active, and the PO2 is 40 mm Hg, which I mentioned you earlier from the table, whereas arterial blood brought to the tissues has a PO2 of 95 mm Hg. This all I had explained you in the table. Now here you can see in the diagram, it is representing the exchange of gases at the alveolus and the body tissues with the blood and the transport of oxygen and CO2. I am repeating, you can easily see the diagram on the screen. In the tissues, the PO2 is 40 mmHg, whereas in the arterial blood, or you can say in the oxygenated blood brought to the tissues, it has PO2 of 95 mmHg. O2 diffuses from the blood into the tissue cells, and in the tissues, that is in the tissue, the PCO2 is about 45 mmHg, which is higher than that of blood, and in the blood it is 40 mmHg. Therefore it rushes out and it diffuses from the tissues into the blood. This way the exchange of gases is ended, and you can see here in the diagram the alveolus shown above, which is taking the inspired air and the expired air. Here the PO2 is 104 mmHg and PCO2 is 40 mmHg, and see the O2 is going into the pulmonary vein, which is coming from the lungs entering into the heart. Then the heart by the aorta is sending the blood to the different tissues, different parts of your body, showing you the systemic arteries. That means it is carrying the oxygenated blood. And here you can see the PO2 is 95 mmHg and PCO2 is 40 mmHg. This side you see the blue color one. You can see in the tissues now the PCO2 is 45 mmHg, PO2 is 40 mmHg, and these are the veins, that is the inferior vena cava carrying the deoxygenated blood from the lower parts of the body, and the superior vena cava coming from the upper parts of your body to the right auricle. Here you can see very well, and it is the blue one indicating the deoxygenated blood, and I mentioned you that here the PO2 is 40, whereas PO2 in the arterial blood it is 95 mm, and the CO2 is 45 mm, whereas in the arterial blood it is 40 mm. Therefore the CO2 is now moving to the pulmonary artery and then going to the alveolus. In the alveolus it remains 40 mm and it is given out along with the expired air. Thank you.